In this video, you'll see how to add a credit for a paid bibliographic item in WorldShare Acquisitions. So let's say I received this item, If It Bleeds by Stephen King, and already paid the invoice. But then I discover that there's some damage to my copy and several pages are unreadable. So my vendor agrees to give me a credit for the item and will ship another copy later. I'll go through the steps to process a credit for a bibliographic item in Acquisitions so that you can apply the original funds spent to the remaining balance for that fund. To create a credit, you'll essentially be creating an invoice with a negative amount. And when you pay this credit invoice, you'll be adding that amount back into the fund in your budget. So I've logged into WMS and I'll select Acquisitions. And then I'll select Receive and Invoice on the left navigation menu. My title, If It Bleeds by Stephen King, is a single-part monograph, so the processing type should be set to monograph. Next, I'll click the Action drop-down, and I'll change the action from Receive an Invoice to just Invoice. Next, I'll click New Invoice. On the Add New Invoice screen, I'll give my credit invoice a name, so I'll call it Credit 0519-2020. Then I'll type the first couple of letters of the vendor that I used when I ordered this title and the vendor that is giving me the credit. And I'll select the vendor, Robinson's Books, when it appears. For the invoice date, I'll accept today's date, and then I'll click Save. Next, I'll click View Items. And now on the Receive an Invoice screen, in order to find my title, I can filter by purchase status. So I'll click the drop-down for purchase status, and I'll select Paid. Remember, you can only apply a credit for an item that has been invoiced and paid. If the action drop-down is grayed out, this means that the item may have been invoiced, but the invoice has not yet been paid. If you see this, make sure the payment status filter is set to Paid. Or if you haven't paid for the item yet, you'll need to do that first before adding the credit. Now you can see the list of items filtered by paid, and they all have the action drop-down that would allow me to create a credit. To find my item, I'll do a search by the title. And so I'll enter the title in the search box, If It Bleeds. Now I'll click the Select Action drop-down, and I'll select Add Credit to Invoice. And the Add Item to Invoice Credit dialog box appears. In the dialog box, I'll select the amount for the credit. The default will be a negative amount of the unit price on the invoice. Or you can select Enter Amount and add it on the credit invoice manually. Either way, you will be able to edit the amount. For example, if you need to add shipping charges and so on. I'll leave it set to the default amount and I'll click Add. In the Invoiced column now, you'll see both your original paid invoice for the item and the credit invoice you just created. I'll click on the credit invoice I just created. And this takes me to the credit invoice where I can make any edits as needed. Note that all the amounts for the unit price and the other amounts will be a negative figure. When I'm finished any edits, I'll click on Pay. And then I'll click on Pay again to confirm that I want to pay the credit invoice. And now you can see the status changes to Paid. And the total amount of this credit for $22.95 would be added back to the remaining balance for the fund I used for this item. Now if I search for this title under Order Items, I'll search for the title If It Bleeds. And then I'll click on the title when it appears. And then I'm going to select the Invoice tab. And now you can see both the original debit or invoice and the new credit invoice that I just added for this title. If you have questions about adding a credit for a bibliographic item in WorldShare Acquisitions, you can find contact information for OCLC support in your region at oc.lc/support.